Hello, friends. We're back. This is the last part of the Mideast unit, part four, covering Central Asia, Afghanistan, and the other stands. When I say the other stands, you'll find out here in just a second. So, as you can see, there's six countries highlighted here, five of which were former Soviet republics. So you've got Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and those are the five former Soviet republics. And then you have Afghanistan down here. Now, um, most people, when they hear all those guys together, they talk about what does the stand mean, right? Or istan. It's an old Persian uh, phrase saying the place of. So usually, they're like Kazakhstan is the homeland of the Kazakhs, so it's the place of the Kazakhs is a way to put it. Now it's a huge subregion of Central Asia. We do include it in the Mid East as it abuts to them and has a lot more in common with that area versus Asia or Russia, that kind of stuff, or Pakistan. So Pakistan is uh, another stand, but again, that has ties more to India, and that's why we include Pakistan when we talked about India. Again, Pak would be the homeland of the Pak tribe, right? So, Caspian Sea and Russia are to the west, although Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan border the Caspian Sea. All the countries of this area are considered landlocked. You can kind of see right here. So, a little bit about the geography. As you can see, there's some serious mountain ranges off to the east. Uh, when you border Iran, there's some mountain range kind of on the southern edge of the Caspian Sea. Um, Now, Kazakhstan is actually very big. I don't know if anybody's in the class has been to Texas. Texas, you can drive for 8 hours and not leave the state from one side to the other. And Kazakhstan is actually four times the size of Texas. It's very arid, grassland, high mountains. If you've ever driven out to, say, Western Omaha, that kind of area, that's the kind of terrain you're talking about most of here. Now, there are some regions up in this area by the lakes where there's some high glaciers, things like that. Um, there's also a desert, the Kuzilkum Desert. I can't pronounce that right. In Uzbekistan, so there's a desert in here. Covers most of the ventral to the east and southwest are fertile valleys. So east, southwest, that kind of stuff. All right. Now, Turkmenistan is also mostly covered by that desert. So, up from basically this line and west is covered by that desert. There are obviously the capital you can see right here on this map is part of this mountain range, and then there's a kind of a fertile valley where the rain and they get some precipitation there, so they can have a decent population. And we'll talk about population in just a sec. Afghanistan is also pretty well mountainous, and you've heard about that quite a bit. So it's a really big area, right? So I talked about Kazakhstan being five times the size of Texas, but it only has 17 million people. Uzbekistan is the second most populous area with 25, Afghanistan being the most populous at 28. So those two together are easily the most populous country in this region, with Kyrgyzstan being 5 million, Turkmenistan being another 5 million, and Tajikistan being 7 million. So if you were to add all those up, they don't even get close to what Russia is at 144 million. Certainly not where China is as well, with 1.4 billion. Um, Now, the crazy part is, and maybe I can let me back up a little bit. And we can kind of look at, let's see if we can find, okay. So maybe this is the best way to do it. You can see we got the Mideast, and we talked about how people used to travel through here. And then you have China over here, and with Russia kind of up in this area with Moscow kind of as a circle right there. It was a transient kind of a mixing, hedgy, podgy kind of, everybody got a little bit of movement here and there. So um, the ethnicity of this place is it's pretty well mixed, I guess would be the best way to put it. Now, if you're from Turkmen, you might live in Uzbekistan. If you're from Uzbekistan, you might live in Turkmenistan. Um, so it's very mixed, especially when the Soviets came in. They moved people around quite a bit. Now, it is majority of Muslim, right? And they are overwhelmingly Sunni. So that's the major Muslim sect. Now, now Kazakhstan, so an example would be is about 50% Sunni Muslim and about 35% Russian Orthodox. So that's obviously when the Soviets came in. Now there's smaller minorities, Ukrainians, Germans, Uzbeks, that kind of thing. Tartars, when you go back a little ways, back about 100 years, that was a big ethnic group. Now, Afghanistan it shares a lot of this. This is this at the southern end of this region, and so it's even more complicated. So they've got Pashtuns. Okay, so that's ethnic Afghanistan. So people kind of like Native American tribes have lived in North America. This is kind of the same thing or a similar thing where they've been around for a while. You got the Balochis. I can't pronounce that very well. Now they're ancient Iranian. They trace their lineage back to ancient Iran or Iranian. Now they're at the very southern border, in the very highly mountainous area. They have the Tajiks, which live near the Afghan border with Tajikistan, so that's in the northwest. And then they have the Hazaras, which is Mongolian origin. Now they live in the very mountainous, way up in the hills in the very central part of Afghanistan. Now again, they're all mostly Sunni Muslims, except for the Hazaras, who are Shia. And that they're a pretty small section of that, right? So when we talk about Afghan, it's a very ethnic, uh, diverse group. There's 14 different ethnic groups in this relatively small country when you compare it to a lot of them in the area. Um, Here's just a few pictures. We've got a local mosque, another local mosque, some traditional kind of Persian influenced uh, dress. This guy's up in the. This is one of the Hazaras up in the mountainous region. Um, Here's a marketplace. Open marketplace is very common in this area. Um, just a picture of that. It's a pretty cool place if you ever do travel to any country. Well, generally in this area, in the Mideast in general, they have these bazaars that are just amazing to walk through, and you can buy just about anything, fruit, vegetable, spice, whatever it might be. All right, so we won't spend a lot of time talking about the Kazakhstan and a lot of the other ones. We're really going to be talking mostly about Afghanistan, as it's been kind of the I don't know most newsworthy, I guess. Now, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, they're all important countries, and I don't want to say that they're not, but they really haven't been countries since the fall of the Soviet Union. So they're fairly new in that regard. Now, this has been when we talk about Afghanistan, it's been a country that's been crisscross, invaded, migrated. We talked about those ethnic groups, the 11 ethnic groups. But you've had Persians, Greeks, Arabs, Mongols, Tartars, Russians. They've all walked through, conquered parts of it. Russia and Britain fought 3 wars over over Afghanistan in the 1800s. As you can see, it's kind of a pretty critical link if you're trying to get from Europe over to China. It can be a pretty critical link for people to move. All right, so now Britain had control of Afghanistan. It was actually a colonial power, but they never fully colonized it. Right, so they had um, foreign policy control. They had a lot of influence, but they never really colonized it. Right, so it was neutral through World War I, World War II. And then throughout the Cold War, they were neutral. They're kind of, Switzerland kind of a thing, even though everybody wanted a little piece of them. And then in 1979, Russia invaded Afghanistan, and did have some Marxist regime there that Russia was supporting, and then this lasted 10 years, but they never completely took over. But it did pretty much decimate the country as far as its trade, its cities, its buildings, that kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, so let's see. More recently, we've been involved. We, being the United States, have been involved in Afghanistan, trying to put down terrorist groups, things like that. And yeah, I think that covers everything that's going to be in the quiz. If you have any questions, let me know. Please stay safe, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.